Okay, where was I? So last year I did a few presentations, and I did one on sound, which I wasn't sure anybody was that interested, but especially after hearing a number of people here said they still like the HP48, I thought, well, gee, that's pretty neat. And I have a number of them, not as many as Bill, I suspect, but in any event. Is this booking out okay, Jake, or should I hold this while I'm talking? Maybe I'll do
It'd be
this.
better if it was closer to you, but you can't jiggle it or I get all kinds of artifacts.
How's this? Okay, we'll try this. So I talked about a plotter interface, which I'm still working on, that hasn't been touched since then. I did some stuff on Silicon Valley history, and I also got a hold of Dave Cochran, and I brought this up because I wanted to mention John Mink. If you've looked around the web, you could probably Google John's name and HP history. He's done an incredible job. I sit down with him for coffee, I don't know, every month or three. He was actually at HP during the development of the displays for the HP 35. He worked with the people that developed the magnifiers on the displays and that stuff, but he's a great resource. So, and you'll see in my presentation, and I apologize for this being last minute, I wasn't planning on doing this. I figured this out about 2 o'clock this morning. That's a long story, we'll talk later. So I went in and I did a few more things, and it's cheesy code, there's a lot of bugs in it, so I'm leaving that up to you to point them out here. Some of them are pretty obvious. And I'm saying jump to slide 19, so I'm going to jump through here. This was just the stuff I did last time that I never really finished. So I think this is where I wanted to start. Now, one of the driving forces for this is I'm, as you may notice, visually impaired. When I'm in the bed at night and I'm laying there without my glasses on, I can't even see the clock radio. So I thought, well, why don't I have a machine like an HP48 just beat the time for me? And basically, by using a different tone frequency for the hour and a different tone frequency for the minute, where I divide the minutes by 5 because I don't want to hear it beep at me 59 times, I can tell within 5 minutes what time it is just by having my ears open. And our aural senses, as you may be aware, you can't close like your eyes. They're always aware in a sense. So, and me doing the work I've been doing for a few years, I'm pretty sensitive to that. So, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try to get this machine going. Basically, you'll see the hour code. Do I have a pointer?
Yeah, we have
This
two.
thing?
Yeah, you can use that.
Oh, man. Which side's the laser on?
Bob, you got yours?
It's still up there somewhere.
Yeah, should be.
Might be easy to use that one because there's only one button on it. Oh,
There's
no,
three,
no, I
there's-
put it away. Hang on.
Okay, well, this works like this. Oops.
No,
Doesn't work.
that's why I was going to have.
That's why you don't use that one.
Yeah. Now I got everything all
I
mixed up.
thought that was,
There.
okay, you have to find where you want to be.
Okay. Basically, I mean, this should be pretty straightforward. We just get the time, take the integer part of it, which is the hour. This basically just takes care of the multiples of 12. And then it beeps a tenth of a second at 440 hertz, or pretty close to it. I've thought about this lately, about checking the clock speed of the calculators, because they vary quite a bit. And I assume that affects this actual frequency, but that's for another talk. No? You've studied this?
Well,
Whatever, we'll get to that. Also for the minute, here we just extract the minutes part of the time and beep it at a higher frequency. Stop me anywhere along the ways here. So here is basically the code that does something like this. Let's see if I can do this here. And these are my notes down here, bong 9, that's what the code's called, because I would have
That's how you
forgotten.
get ready for this presentation.
I told you it was at 1, maybe it was 1:30 this morning. Lay off. Okay, so here we go. You got it, but I don't know if the room got it. Anybody got it? Let's try this.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, you heard that. So that's telling me it's about 210. Right here, and unfortunately, they both sound the same. Here are the first two low frequency beeps, that's the hour. And then the two higher frequency beeps. I'll wait a few minutes and you'll hear the higher frequency beep at the end. And it's pretty simple code. I mean, that's why I thought, why should I? Oh, you can hear me okay. Okay. Is that okay for you?
It's a little,
Jake,
I
yeah,
got
it's a little
gain
fuzzy.
actually.
And that's all the code it takes to do that. Now by being... Okay, there, I'll talk down here.
Pick it up.
All right, let's see what I got next here. So,
That's the fire alarm.
so one thing, you can leave it down, I'll just visit with this as necessary. And I am trying to sit still, Eric. I watched myself last year and I'm sure you were frustrated by the way I was dancing all over the place. I'm not gonna dance today. That was at 3:30 this morning. What some of you may have heard yesterday, I accidentally had this machine left on, and I just inherited a grandfather clock, and I hear the bongs all the time, so I thought, well, why don't I find out the frequencies and just emulate this on an HP48. So, these, I'm not even going to try to run them separately, because I'll probably get lost in the beep function, but it just uses a simple beep function on the HP48. These are the frequencies of the, I'm not even going to try to hum them now because I've been up too long. But you'll see here, and this is a piece of code called XT19B. Why is it called XT19B? I don't remember. That wasn't this morning. But what it does, it requires, what did I do with the pointer? It needs an input variable of T. And the reason I did that is because when you have a bong going, it takes about 10 or 15 seconds, right? When you're running the code, it's kind of frustrating to sit there and wait 15 or 20 seconds. So what I did, now check this out. Check that out. Let's try this once more here. So here it is normally. Let's see what this is only going to tell us the hour, right? Because this is something I set as an alarm that repeats every hour. Okay, that doesn't have the bong added, that's just the big bend tones. So, and I was thinking I could show you the calculator on the screen, but I can't do that. This is the bong. Okay. Bong 4, see here I go again, bet I took notes. Okay, there's just two. Could everybody hear that? Is it coming through at all? Richard couldn't hear it, he's
No,
up
I'm
front. Let's
deaf,
try
that
this
doesn't
again.
count.
What? So, what I've done, what you can do is write an alarm, and this is the code you put in an alarm. This just tells that big bend function to run with a period of 1 second, and then do the bong 4 code, which does the bonging. So let me see, I'm going to code that in real quick here. Okay, here goes. Ah, see? I don't even know my own code. I've got to give it a time. And those are the 2 bongs because it's close to 2 o'clock. Again, I set that as an alarm to go off every hour. This I think I already talked about and demonstrated this already. This is just the time showing you that it does the lower frequency tone, however many times the hour is, and then the higher frequency tone for the minutes. And that's the end of that because that's part of the other presentation. And that's it. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out, as you may have noticed, well you didn't notice because you didn't see all of my code, this clearing the flag 40, which is supposed to shut off the clock on the display, which will prevent those glitches you may have heard in the sound. There's something funny going on there, because when the code's running, it does not shut the clock off. I'll have to talk to Jim or somebody, there's somebody who knows more of the intricacies, the details of how the screen interrupt works. So that's basically it. Questions, yes?
Well, if I were to do a clock, rather than emulate frequencies of whatever,
Yeah.
I would pick the frequency that resonates with my ear and work it.
I'm glad you brought that up, and the one thing which I tried to talk about last time is when I tried to map the chaotic to a range, and whenever I do get back to this and finish it, I want to be able to give the user, say, okay, my ear is more sensitive between 4 kilohertz and 5 kilohertz, you know, keep this whole numeric range within that frequency range, or maybe if you're more sensitive to lower frequencies, yeah. So yes, I understand. My frequency response has changed a lot since I heard Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, because I have a low-cost, has a
Little
USB connector on the bottom, it's a board, and it has a little microphone, and it shows you the sound levels, and you can set 10 different ranges.
And you can set the frequency of the alarm you want.
Well, no, it's not an alarm, it's just an audio detector,
Or just to
but
test your
it
hearing.
gives you a visual display. And so when I was working with that, you know, I wanted,
Well, speaking of sound, this wasn't part of my talk, but since you brought up these 21st century devices that rely on sound, I recently, for whatever reason, that's another story, got a heart monitor. Okay, it's this little thing with 2 pads that you put your index fingers on, and it connects to your cell phone, and it shows you your heart rate. And I thought when I got this thing, well, of course this thing uses Bluetooth, right? It says no. All you need is access to the microphone on your cell phone. So I got out one of my sound level meters that works beyond many of our hearing ranges. And that thing is actually frequency modulating with a 20 kilohertz tone, is how this heart monitor talks to your cell phone.
So it'll also be good for driving away teenagers.
Well, you know, in some of the work I do where we work on ultrasonic stuff, I think about, well, what about when animals are in your vehicles and stuff like that, so it's quite important.
So kind of on a related note, so I have sleep apnea and have to use a CPAP machine with a mask when I sleep. And it turns out that I ended up having to use what's just called a sleep mask in addition to that, which covered my eyes, because otherwise exhaust air from the CPAP mask will dry my eyes out and cause problems. And so when I have all this on, I can't see, but I can hear. And so I was considering, because a lot of times I'll wake up and want to know what time it is, and I was considering making a talking clock. And before I did that, I found that Geppetto Electronics sells on Tindy a nice little talking clock that gets its time for GPS. They sell for $149.99.
What I've actually done, I've been doing fidgeting with these kind of things for a number of years. I think it was probably 10 or 20 years ago. I just set up something where when the 48 was sitting in the case, I just hit it to turn on, and it would play the time, so I could reach out of bed, because again, I'm pretty blind without these things on. And so I'd do stuff like that. When I set an alarm as an alarm clock, I'd have it set so it would repeat every 5 minutes. And all you have to do is punch the case to hit one of the keys, and it'll stop and then repeat 5 minutes later. So it's really, I'm quite a big fan of this machine, obviously. And just outside of all its other capabilities, just the clock stuff. And that's why I keep bugging people online to put the alarm in the DM42, but we'll see if he listens. Yeah, I did other stuff with sound, but I'll tell you about that later, Eric. I won't take up the time here. Okay, anything else? And I dropped Jake's mic. Sorry. I got them both now. Okay? All right, thank you.
I do have one question regarding the sound. I have an inexpensive audio meter. When
A
I was-
Radio Shack one?
Hmm?
A Radio Shack one?
No, I don't remember. I have 2 of them. I was like, things with pairs anyway, but and it covers, I bought it because of the range.
Frequency.
No, the dB range. Okay. And I bought it because it was sensitive to the low end. And I found out that I literally couldn't, and it has a maximum function, so sound is changing, and we get to a high value, it saves on the display that value, and it goes higher, higher. So
Yes.
I turn it on inside a box and close everything up, try to get to how low can I, read it. My house is apparently noisy, or what ranges on the extremes do you deal with in terms of dBA, I guess it is?
dBA is it's a bandwidth that mimics or is close to our hearing range. It varies all the way from, plus 100-ish, which is jet engine-ish level.
I mean,
down.
a quiet residential home.
I don't know what the specifications are on that.
Do your meters go down below 30?
Below 30, you mean like, oh, yes, of course, yes.
I'll look, that's what I'm looking
It's down to minus 80-ish, 90-ish. This reminds me of an article I read a while ago about the quietest room on the planet.
at. Yeah.
Can I mention company names? Or who would think, who in the world has the quietest room that they've built?
Apparently it's not at my house.
Oh, I can tell you the quietest place I've been.
Please.
It was in an old gold mine, and the town's turned, and I'm 150 feet back in the mountain, and that was very quiet.
Yeah. If you've ever been in an anechoic chamber, have an opportunity to do it, because it's very bizarre, because we're always surrounded by ambient noise that, whether it's the fans in these things or whatever. It ends up among, whether it's Apple, I have a pretty quiet one, but it ends up Microsoft as the quietest room on the planet.
Really?
Yes, but why? Yeah. Anyhow, in an anechoic room, since we're always so used to this constant pressure, it feels like your eardrums are pushing out. It's a really bizarre
So you
sensation.
really hear the molecular movement in your ear when it's totally quiet?
No, but in this article, I'm sure if you Google it, it mentions that the sound levels or lack of sound levels they achieve in this room is getting down to, the Brownian noise of molecules in the air.
It's interesting that you said the pressure, because I've got noise suppressant in the yard, $1,500 hose for the airplane. We're 75 to 80 decibels on the flight deck.
Holy crap.
Yeah, exactly. Pardon me? So we put this in, and as soon as I put it on, it feels like an air pressure change, because it's sensing the outside ambient and then doing an inverse wave to it.
Yeah,
And it's absolutely incredible when you get to that level.
yeah, I can't
I wear
fly
them in
without
bed.
it. Sorry.
I wear them in bed, just, I shouldn't say that.
You're telling us too much, dude.
My wife will
Yeah, I can't fly without noise-canceling headphones anymore. It's such an incredible difference, yeah. It's definitely well worth it. Okay, anything else? Oh, yeah.
That noise thing. Bandelier National Park, when you go to their visitor center area,
Mhm.
you drive down there, the loudest noise you hear for a while is you slam the door in your car, and after that, the silence is oppressive.
Yeah. Did you say this was in a cave?
Bandelier, no, it's an open canyon.
Oh,
It's
really?
right by Los Alamos. I've never had it that quiet before, except the so-called hearing boxes, audio boxes. And those seem to generate more noise somehow, or they don't cut them down enough. But there's absolutely, in my view, to me, there's no noise whatsoever.
Interesting. Thank
I
you.
don't know what it does. No, I mean, obviously, I think if the wind blows in from the east, you'd hear all the rest
Yeah,
of it.
and there's not much traffic around. I noticed in Michigan, by the way, my home in Detroit is about a mile from the nearest expressway. But just when winter comes and the foliage on the tree, I assume it's because of the foliage on the trees going away, just the ambient noise level around my house comes up a lot. I haven't measured it yet, but, yeah. Is there another question back there? Okay, thank you again.
Thank you, Tom.